Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twillow Talk. I'm Tanys Coughlin with the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy, and I am a Reiki Master, Celtic Shamanic High Priestess, Crystal Master, Channel, stuff. I do stuff. And I am joined today by my beautiful co-host, Jennifer Jurkofsky. Would you like to tell people about yourself, please?
I like Tanys do stuff with Twillow and with my business. Registered psychotherapist, certified Canadian counselor, intuitive life coach, energy worker, animal mom, other mom,
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah, my mom too, but
and life.
Mine's a bit older than yours. Awesome. So on Twillow Talk, what we usually do is we have authentic conversation. So we usually pick a card. Last week we did our empathy thing, our empath, sensitives, and clairsentience as part of our Survive and Thrive for the holidays. This week we are going back to our usual routine, which is Wisdom Cards by Diane Cooper and Greg Stewart. So we only have a few left, actually, this year. Very few left. We've been through quite a bit this year. So, shall we see?
We got a new thing for the new year.
We will. I'll have to look. I'm sure I've got other cards we can pull.
Oh, yeah.
And
if you guys have any recommendations for cards or ones that you think would be nice to do,
Absolutely. That would be awesome, too. Mm-hmm. So let's see what comes out today. Remember that one we were talking about earlier that we said, that goes with stuff, but we'll check and see?
Really?
Discipline. So we have to talk about discipline.
Okie dokie.
Not in the punitive. We're going to talk about it in terms of practice, I believe. So the card, discipline. Hi, Annie. Nice to see you. When you have cultivated self-discipline, you can trust yourself to respond appropriately in any situation. This is a key to peace of mind. Those who are schooled in personal mastery are in command when faced with challenges. They can show their restraint and dignity when others tend to exceed. Wisdom guides you to train yourself to be disciplined. Set up life-enhancing habits and sensible routines as a foundation for living. Then create methods and systems to promote an appropriate way of operating. The rewards will enrich every area of your life. All righty. And the affirmation is, I am disciplined. That's not a strong suit for me, I'm just going to say. I guess I shouldn't say that in everything. I think there are things that I'm disciplined in and things that I'm not so disciplined in. That I would like to be more disciplined in.
Yeah.
I think that's more what it is.
Yeah. Well, if you think about any spiritual teaching across the board, it doesn't matter what religious background, it doesn't matter whatever, self-discipline is such a huge component. And it's the foundation in a lot of ways. And it's the foundation not because it wants to be punitive and not because there's any, kind of deprivation or anything like that in it. But it is important and foundational because of that part in there near the beginning where it talked about being able to act, right? And we've talked about this before about acting versus reacting. And being able to really be in control of yourself and understand what's going on within so that we're not just being pulled every which way, right? And that's such an important foundational piece for the spiritual journey.
It is. Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of times we're more disciplined than we actually give ourselves credit for things. I jokingly say I'm not disciplined, but I do my practices every day, and I, brush my teeth, and I, do all those good things. Those are all forms of discipline that we should give ourselves credit for, right? Because not everybody does, and not that you have to. I don't want a whole bunch of, stuff back, but about what we do and what we don't. But, you know, those kind of disciplines are part of it. And the more I think that we have some type of a routine, some kind of discipline, I think it takes, because we go on autopilot when we're doing routine. So it frees up brain space in a way, right? And it clears the energy, the brain clutter, when you can clear up brain space. So I think that's kind of a good thing. Now, you were saying earlier that it goes with the transits right now too, that discipline, right?
Yeah, well, as of yesterday, we moved, Sun moved into gate 5. So from the human design perspective, it's really about fixed rhythms, right? And so I kind of talked about it a little bit Friday night with Ramsey's open mic night, which hi
Speaking of Ramsey, hi Ramsey.
And, this idea that, right now, especially with the holidays, things begin to get chaotic.
Yeah.
Right. And we get very out of routine, and we begin to kind of try to fit everything in, and we get pulled here and there, and we're doing all of these different things. And this is where self-discipline and routine are so important, right? Because part of this fixed pattern is going to be, if we're out of routine, if we're feeling like, okay, I don't have the energy for this and I'm pushing myself to do it anyway, or I'm feeling very unbalanced because I'm out of routine, that's stuff to really be aware of. And that's in the transit right now. So finding ways, and self-discipline is going to be a huge aspect for that, of really maintaining routine and allowing space for flexibility where needed, but being able to respond, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to just feeling kind of pulled everywhere.
Yeah, and giving yourself those few moments to check in with yourself and what you need. Because I know we talked about that a lot last week with the empath, the thrive and survive. We were, a lot of those things that we talked about could become part of your routine, part of your self-discipline over the holidays. And so there's some great hints there.
Yeah.
To look
Most
back
definitely.
at.
Most
What else
definitely.
have we got in the transits this week? What else have we got in the transits this week? Have we got
I only looked at the sun one for our thing today, only because it's whatever is in our sun gate is generally, or in our sun, is generally the gate that is going to be the most kind of in your face.
and it'll be everybody then, likely, right?
Yeah, exactly. I could always take a look and see what else is coming up for us this week if we want to. But, Michelle is always really good at being on top of all of that.
That's true.
So I would say,
So tune into Wednesday's show.
Yeah, I like to, especially when we've just had a change, I like to really address what might be coming up as a key thing. But I err to her for all of the nuances of and all of that.
Yeah, Michelle rocks. Randy says, I agree. Michelle rocks.
Most definitely. Definitely. But this idea of self-discipline, so much of what we talked about last week with the survive and thrive has to do with discipline, right? And for me, I think part of the biggest part of self-discipline is going back to one of my favorite quotes, right? Know thyself.
Yeah.
And to thy own self be true, right? And so how do we do that? But we have to be disciplined enough to take that step back when we're activated, right? When that trigger comes up, to go, whoa, okay, I want to respond. I want to react right now.
What do I do with this?
Right? Yeah, exactly. But that self-discipline comes in and you're like, okay, what's really going on? What do I need to learn from this? What do I need to do? Is there something I actually do have to address? Is it my stuff? Is it not my stuff? Right? All of those things that we talked about. And self-discipline ultimately is what is going to allow us the space to do that.
Mm-hmm.
right? To hold back and not, just jump out and lash out and whatever at others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hello, Akash. Nice of you to join us. Okay.
Or not.
Or not.
Again, self-discipline. You may want something, it's still not appropriate always to ask for it.
Exactly.
So Ramsey says, empaths do get confused during the holidays, can't figure out where the emotions are coming from. So true. So true. And, when we have that moment where, I think we talked about that a couple times last week, where an emotion might come in and we think, oh, okay, I'm doing okay. And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm not okay. I'm not doing okay. Right. And how do I move forward from here? And what does that look like? And if we have been doing our practices, our meditations, taking that time, knowing ourselves, all of that, we're going to have an easier time working through what's ours and what isn't than we would if we weren't doing those practices on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's true, for sure. I think they give us that foundation, like you were saying, right? To make sure that we're struggling a little bit here with technical stuff at the moment.
Yeah, that's why I just kept going, because I was like, Tanys is doing something.
Keep going, Jen, keep going. I also realized I don't have my headset in today, so I don't know if we're getting feedback or not, but I usually have it in.
I'm not hearing any, but I don't know if anybody else is. It's interesting.
We had a good comment actually here from Ramsey, so let's pull that up.
Oh yeah, that's what I was just.
You were just talking about that?
Yeah. Yeah, shocking tech issues. I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah, last week was full of them. Mm-hmm. This one's more personal, but yes.
I think, when we think about self-discipline too, I think it gets a bad rap, right? Like just this idea of, well, we should be free to do what we want, and self-discipline is, all this work, and, why should I be disciplined? Why can't that person be more disciplined? Why do I,
that's more about not taking, that's not accountability, right? Non-accountability, which
exactly.
that's not.
And so, when we think about all of the different things that we've looked at, right, through these wisdom cards, it's really important to see the number of different attributes that come in with self-discipline, right? And how much of it, right, taking accountability, being compassionate, doing, mindfulness meditation, using your wisdom, right? Being open and all to opportunity. All of those things really, self-discipline helps in all of those different areas. And all of those different areas work with discipline.
For sure. Okay, I'm here now. I'm partially here, partially not, partially out there. So sorry. Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you were doing like the.
I was trying to take care of that. It looks like it's okay now.
Stuff.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I'm thinking about, like, as a parent with kids, right? Because discipline, of course, has this. Sometimes just taking a walk is a key to discipline. Oh yeah, definitely. And it's kind of where I was going with it with my, it's like, okay, can you just walk it off? Like you're having an issue. Can you just go walk it off and come back regrouped, and then let's work through it. Right. And so, yeah, Ramsey, I agree with you completely.
Yeah. And knowing when to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the the self-discovery piece, or the well, I mean, key part of self-reflection is that sort of self-awareness, right? Being
Yeah.
aware of when you're triggered and when you have to pull in that self-discipline to go and do
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah. And I don't, I don't know that it's always, like we want to hold ourselves. I do a lot of values work with clients. And, we talk a lot about what we want to be, how we want to show up, what we want to have in our lives, and how we want to be able to handle our experiences. And then we talk about all of the thoughts and feelings and inner processes that come up that get in the way
Mm.
of doing that. And so when we talk about self-discipline or discipline in general, also that idea of willpower and really, can I allow myself to sit with this thing that is uncomfortable, not because I want to suffer more, but because I want to work through it. I truly want to understand what is happening right now so that I can move beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes discipline, because we learn from a very early age to avoid anything that causes us pain. And it's
When you
really
burn your hand on the stove, you learn, you avoid that because it's painful. That's the physical part, but the same idea with the emotional, right?
Mhm.
For sure. And I think that's part of the great work.
Mhm.
They call it great work for a reason, because there's effort involved
Mhm.
in self-discipline.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it is so foundational in so many different um, teachings and all, because we don't necessarily have to be regimented, and all of the time. But the more we allow space for it and the more we open to it, the more we open to a lot of other spiritual truths as well. Right?
Yeah.
So when we think about self discipline in this moment, the mind is going, oh, I want blah, blah, blah. Right? And maybe we have oh, yeah, I do. Okay. And then the discipline, the willpower piece comes in and goes, okay, but wait a minute. Right? Is that going to get me what I really want? What my ultimate goal is, what I'm trying to move for. And sometimes it's, yeah, for sure. Awesome. And sometimes it's like, well, actually, no. Okay. So what is going to move me in the direction I want to go?
Yeah.
Right.
It's
And
about seeing the big picture many
Mhm.
times. We look at that, right?
Yeah.
What do we need to do to see the big picture first? And do you have personal goals? What are you moving towards?
Mhm.
That's another thing. That's part of it too, right? Where do you want your life to go? What direction do you want that to be?
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself?
Mhm.
Obviously, we're not robots and need to let off steam sometimes, as long as outbursts become less and less over time. Never allow the outbursts to take over your life.
Mhm.
For sure. And I think there's ways of letting off steam that are less dramatic, maybe, or
Mhm.
detrimental to the end goal than perhaps others.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I love that it's, become less and less over time, because that is so
Exactly.
true, right? Like,
Yeah,
we are a work in progress. We are
absolutely.
not arrived. If we were, we wouldn't be here anymore.
It
So,
would be done. We're here to learn.
right? And so every time we come through, even if you're coming back as somebody who did, right? You're coming back, you're still bringing in that human experience. And part of that human experience is making mistakes, and that's okay, right? Like,
Well, and also, what is a mistake? Because really, there's a whole. Is it wrong, right or wrong? Is it a mistake? Probably not. Probably you're supposed to just learn from it. And who's saying it's right or wrong? Because there's what we expect of ourselves, and then there's what everybody else expects of ourselves, and which one is right or wrong. And like, if your values are different from somebody else's, does that mean that you're wrong because you don't meet their values? I mean, that's a whole discussion in and of itself.
Yeah. And I think that's where self-discipline also comes in that what is right for me is not necessarily right for you. And I don't need to push what is right for me onto you, right? But I have to honor it for me.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing what's right for you is often a big thing. So that's where some of that discipline comes in terms of, regularly sitting with yourself. How does this sit? Does this resonate? Does it not resonate? And what does that word resonate mean to you? Does it muscle test?
Oh, yeah.
Do muscle testing. Does it muscle test? Is this right? Those of you that haven't done muscle testing, I'm trying to pull my fingers apart, if you're wondering what I'm doing. So if I say my name is Tanys, I can't pull my fingers apart. If I say my name is Jennifer, they won't stay together. That's a muscle testing thing. Some people do it like this.
Yeah.
So your body knows what's right for you. And that's the concept behind the muscle testing.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. And you can test all kinds of things for it. Yeah, which is pretty amazing.
Could be part of your discipline.
It could be. It's actually a really good thing to implement with your discipline.
Ramsey loves it.
It does help.
It does. It's great for even things like vitamins or supplements that you might be looking at. Muscle test them. Is it right? I know some people will hold it in one hand and then muscle test with the other. Is this right? And then they'll pick up another one. Is this? And you can do it with crystals too, right? Do I need this one today?
Yeah.
If it tests strong, then yeah. If not, then you don't need it.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. I'm going to go back though for a minute to the mistake thing, because I think that's such an interesting thing, and coming at it from the human design perspective too. I'm reminded of like the type 3, right, where nothing is a mistake, and you have to bump up against things in order to learn and know which way to go and what to do and all of that kind of stuff. And so, depending on what your design is, how you are disciplined is also going to look very different. Right. And so opening space for, again, that idea that what is discipline for you is not going to be discipline for somebody else. Right. And so, thinking about somebody who has an emotional authority, that discipline is not making a decision while you're in the wave. Right. And making sure that you go through the whole thing before you do it. Right. For somebody who is a reflector.
That's me, by the way. She's yes, not to make snap decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody who's a reflector has to wait a whole lunar cycle before they make an important decision.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody who is splenic has to get out of their head and get out of the emotion of it in order to hear what's happening in the moment, to know what to do. Right. Somebody who's self-projected or mental has to, they have to voice it. They have to actually say it out loud and see how they feel. Right. And so really honoring what your authority is and how that plays out for you is also a discipline. And it takes a lot of work, but the benefit that comes from that is phenomenal. Yeah,
for sure. I know, when we think about exercise and discipline, that's a big one for people, right? How do I have the discipline to do it every day? Sometimes it's about not letting yourself down in that moment too. So, if you make a commitment to yourself, because you're not always feeling, I'm trying to get my thoughts in order here. You're not always feeling like you can do it every day, but if you make the discipline to the commitment to yourself to put on your sneakers every day and then see how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Most times once you've got your sneakers on, you'll do a little bit. You're like, okay, well, I'll just do a little bit. And then you start, and it helps with that. So if you can get that far, but if we don't do that, then we're like letting ourselves down. And that's hard on our self-esteem, actually. When we don't have the discipline to keep up with those commitments to ourselves, it's hard on the self-esteem. This is true too. Ramsey says discipline is also accepting what is. Yes. So there are times when somebody else is making the choices.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have to go with the flow. Or something just happens and we don't have control over it, because really control is an illusion. So accepting what is could be going with the flow. That's a form of discipline too. Mm-hmm. Not showing the resistance or fighting with resistance over things just because it doesn't meet what your expectation is.
Yeah, that's such a huge piece. Right? Yeah. So much of the suffering that we experience is because of our resistance, right?
Yeah.
It is funny because I remember at one point there was this, I don't remember where I saw it, but it was just this little equation, and it was, how did it go? Perceived level of difficulty plus level of resistance equals level of suffering.
Mm. Yes.
Right. And so the moment that we, begin to think, oh, I can't do this, or I don't really want to, or,
resistance. Yeah.
Right. That resistance comes in. And so this is where the discipline piece comes in, and it's like, okay, right? Like, if this is something that I have to do for whatever reason, I've made a commitment for it, or it's just part of my responsibility, to say, okay, right, I'm going to work through this and I'm going to get it done. And, there's, I never say his name right, Ishwan, writes some phenomenal books. And one of the ones that he wrote about was about meditation and the importance of meditating. And in there, he talked about presence, right? And the need to really be present in the moment. And one of the things that he illustrated so beautifully was, you're at work and all you can think about is that date you have tonight. And you're like, trying to work. Oh, but it's going to be so much fun. And trying to work. Yeah, but I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And right. Then you get to the date. I didn't do any of my work done. Oh, tomorrow's going to be horrible because I've got so much left to do because I didn't do any work today. And you can see how we're constantly not present, right? And then the next day at work, oh my God, I wasn't present during the date. The person I was out with is going to think I'm, not interested, or I don't want to be there, or, right? And at no point are we actually in the present moment. And discipline is like, no, right here, right now, I'm going to get my work done. Even if I don't want to, and I want to be thinking about something else, I'm going to get it done. Because if I'm present now, I can be present later.
Yeah.
Right? And discipline plays a huge role in our ability to stay present.
Well, and it's healthier to be present in the moment, because really anxiety about the future, it doesn't change the future. All it does is create that resistance to it, right? Mm-hmm. And grief and regret don't change the past. The only thing that we actually have any control over changing is this very moment that we're in, the present moment. So worrying about the future or regretting past is they're in a way futile, because you can't do anything about them. Mm-hmm. So you're just creating pain and suffering or resistance, like we were saying, over stuff that's not in your control. No. That's a hard one, because I remember, before I started my journey, my more serious journey, I was definitely a planner.
Mm-hmm.
Everything had to be, and I would be really upset if it didn't go the way it was supposed to, because that just jeopardized everything else in the rest of the plan. Letting
Mm-hmm.
go of that was a trick.
Yeah.
And I know many people like that really have a hard time letting go. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know what the turning point for me was, but I have certainly made good progress on that. I wouldn't say that, it's always going to be a progress. And I'm not really sure now, even looking back on it, exactly, what I did to switch that, other than really trying to pull myself into that present moment all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Being conscious of, okay, starting to feel anxious and like, all right, am I safe? Am I safe? I'm safe. Okay, I'm safe right
Mm-hmm.
now. So I'm good now. And just trying to be in that moment,
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. Ramsey says, that's what we're also doing during vacation. We're on vacation when we buy the tickets. When we go to our destination, we end up thinking of the number of days we have left to get back to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, isn't that true?
Yeah.
And then we don't enjoy the vacation. In some ways, I feel that way about taking pictures on vacation. You spend your whole time taking pictures,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not actually enjoying. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to have that balance there. Yes, the pictures are great because you can look back at them and there's, it brings back that feeling. You can go back to it. But there's a part of you that's not fully present when you're taking a picture. It's like there's a block, a phone in the way.
Especially when you go to take it and you're like, I didn't turn out right. Take it again. No, that did. What? The focus doesn't work, and this is the whole moment.
Exactly. And all of a sudden, that whole beautiful moment that you could have enjoyed is no longer there.
Yeah, but it's true, Ramsey, and we do it so often with so many different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do I have next, and what am I moving on to after this, and well, what's after that, and
Ooh, weddings, that's another big one. You spend a whole, like, whatever time trying to plan this thing that's one
Mm-hmm.
day, and you're trying to make it like the best day of your life. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's great to have a good plan and a nice wedding, but that's not the rest of your life, But people get
It's
really stressed out when it
one
doesn't
day that
go.
often goes sideways.
Yes, because we've got so many expectations. How can any day possibly meet all of those expectations of a wedding day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've got what is it, real-time TV, with bridezillas, because they're so expectation oriented.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's okay to hope, and it's okay to plan, and it's okay to do that kind of stuff. But in all of that, we have to stay flexible,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we're not going to think of everything, and life has a way of doing its own thing, and it's all okay. But we in this idea of staying present, it doesn't mean that we don't ever plan things.
No, exactly.
But having that expectation of it going a certain way, or everything being perfect, well, life doesn't work that way.
Yeah, we're human. We're perfectly imperfect. That
Mm-hmm.
is the beauty of being human.
Yeah.
That is how we learn lessons. If we
Yeah.
were perfect, nobody would learn anything. Then what's the point of being here?
Yeah. Yeah. And on that, it was interesting. I just, how we have like thought, and then it just snowballs into a whole big thing. But my my thought was just this idea that we try to make things be a certain way, and I think that sometimes we think with discipline we have to force things, and that's not the case either.
Mm-mm.
Right? I think it really does come back to that know thyself. Like right here, right now, something might be great. And right here, right now, 2 seconds later, it might not be great. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? to really have that discipline is to know yourself, and to know what you need in that moment, not necessarily to force something to be that isn't meant to be yet. And, because I was thinking about how, we get in our minds this idea of like, I have to go do this, or I have to do that, or my life is only going to be complete once I do this, or once I do that.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I'll have, people say, well, I'll be okay when, right? And this expectation for this thing in their life to be a certain way is what they're defining their wellness on and their well-being on. And that's also really, really dangerous, right? And so the discipline piece is not about forcing your will onto a situation to make it be a certain way. Discipline is about what's going on for me right here, right now, that's making me feel like that's what's important. Can I reflect on that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not even that something is making you feel that way. It's that it's triggering you. So it's triggering a response. So whether that's an energetic response, an emotional response, physical response, because sometimes those things are quite physical, depending on what's happening. But that it just brings back the whole, like, you aren't making me feel a certain way, right? I make me feel a certain way, or this particular framework that I'm working in is making me feel a certain way. So when you said that, it triggered this framework that I'm working in, that kind of thing, as opposed to it being a specific thing making somebody, or a specific person making somebody feel a certain way. I think we fall into that, and that's kind of that radical responsibility thing, that radical accountability, self-accountability, which as humans, I think we're not so good at often. It's one of those things that is a discipline, which is one thing that we try to do. We try and try and try, right? And we keep doing it until we learn how. And that is what discipline is overall, right? We keep doing something until we're good at it. And we're not expected to be good at it right away when you start something. It's like practice. Practice and discipline go hand in hand.
Yeah, they really do. And it's so interesting because when you think about it, it's like it's a spiritual practice. It's
we have visitors.
It's about, really making the time, and we're not going to be perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think it's being forgiving with yourself that you're not perfect, because nobody is.
Like a horror movie. What sounds like a horror movie?
What sounds like a horror movie?
I can see the laughing, but what is?
Here's what we're laughing at, guys. Which part sounds like a horror movie, Ramsey? The trying to be perfect? Because we aren't?
Because that would be a horror movie.
It would.
Oh, the door.
Oh, the door.
Yeah.
The door opening.
Fair enough. Sorry about that. It's a creaky one.
He's a medium. Right? He's got his mind on the ghosts that might be opening the door.
No, it was actually a lovely gesture of refilling my water.
Oh, perfect. Stay hydrated. That's awesome.
Even little things like that for discipline, right? Like, we don't drink enough water. We don't pay attention to how we breathe. We don't do the little things sometimes that can be really, really powerful in moving us forward, keeping us present, helping us to stay connected, and all of those. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, I give a resources sheet to all of my clients after the first visit. And on there are simple things like water drinking apps and breathing practice apps. Because sometimes as part of our discipline, we have to have reminders, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we don't need to judge ourselves for needing that.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, it just means we're busy thinking about other things and not that particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how you create discipline, right? You have reminders that get you into a habit, and then the habit is the discipline to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. So I don't know if anybody wants to share some of their practices and what they do to really kind of build that self-discipline. For me, for a very long time, I loved doing writing and spiritual writing. And kind of every time something would come up or trigger, or I was struggling with something, to sit and write and just allow that inspiration to unfold on the page. And that, was a very strong discipline to get into. Very, very rewarding, very fulfilling, very eye-opening, and inspiring. But, it takes discipline to make yourself stop, step back, take a few minutes, open the book, and start writing.
Yeah, I would say for me, probably the meditation was one that's key for me. Only because I'm so busy running around all the time that to actually make sure I take that time. And sometimes it's not till quite late at night or whatever, right? Before I go to bed. But I make sure that even if it's like that 15 minutes before I go to bed can make a huge difference in my sleep, and it can make a huge difference in how the day goes the next day, because it helps me to sleep better. And so the day goes better. And so for me, that is a huge one for me. And actually the water thing, I never used to drink water. And now I do all the time. And I got into the habit of doing that through discipline, because my discipline was, okay, I'm always having a water bottle with me. And then it was like, okay, you need to make sure you're drinking half of it in a day, And now I drink probably 3 or 4 of these in a day, right? Rather than not. But it takes time, and it took me time to get there, because I used to be one of those that have my coffee in the morning and then, through till tea in the afternoon or whatever, because I was on the go and didn't really do it. And now I don't even make it through an hour show without drinking water, which is a good thing. Repetition is the key. This way we don't have to think about it anymore, like practicing your profession. For me is daily listening to the binaural beats to slow my brain waves and help me reduce my thinking. Yes, awesome. Yeah, those are great. Yeah, that's what we were mentioning earlier about, like, reducing the brain clutter so that you don't have to think about it. If it's a habit, then it's like already there. It's not, you don't have to put the brain power into it. So it frees up brain space for other stuff, more creative thinking and more, outside of the box stuff. Well, I mean, if you're that type of thinker. For me, that's what it does. Not everybody does that, but.
Yeah. But I mean, the idea of it too is we want things to be authentic, and we want things to be natural. That's what this is all about, right? Is coming back to our authentic self, and what does that mean, and what does that look like? And so in order for that to take place, we have to use repetition. We have to practice, right? In this moment right here, right now, it's going to be hard to be true to myself because I'm scared of what you're going to think, or what you're going to say, or what this reaction is going to be, or what that's going to mean for me down the road. And, and it takes courage, and it takes determination. There's a lot of things that come into play there. But, the more we know what we're aiming for, the more we can practice going in that direction. Right? Like a simple sports example, right? But let's say you play soccer, and you're on a team, and you're going up against the other team, and that goalie is weak on the upper left side of the goal. You're not going to go, okay, good to know, and then hope that you're good, at scoring at the upper left side of the goal when the game comes. You're going to practice your butt off And you're going to constantly hit that ball into that corner from every possible spot you can on the field, so that when game day comes, it's natural, it's second nature. It's just
Yeah.
part of what you do.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And it's the same for our journey.
Yeah.
Right?
It really is. Yeah. Practicing behavioral patterns, practicing how we respond, practicing how we interact with others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Showing up for ourselves, for our truth.
Despite what others think. It's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard. For me, I found, once I started tapping in a little bit more and following my intuition, that part eased a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started to be able to trust that, okay, my guides have my back. Yes, it might be uncomfortable, but okay. Okay, we'll say that. When I get messages for somebody and they're pushing me to go and tell the person, and I'm like, what? You want me to tell them what? And they're like, go and tell them. So one particular example comes to mind with this one always. It's and this was a key one for my journey in learning to trust. We were at a restaurant in Toronto, and we were getting ready to go. And, I came back from the washroom, and my mom was talking to the owner, and I'm hearing from the guides, tell her she has good energy. And I'm like, I don't know this woman. I'm not going to tell her. And it was early on my journey, right? So I wasn't really all that comfortable talking about energy yet. I wasn't in this as a profession then. And I'm like, I'm not telling her that. Nope, not me. And then I kept hearing, tell her she's got good energy. I'm like, no, I'm not telling her she's got, no, I'm not doing that. So then we get ready to move. We're moving towards the door. And this happened to be on the second floor. And there was one staircase that was between us and outside. So we get to the top of the stairs, and they're saying, tell her she has good energy. I'm like, no, I'm not telling her. See, I'm going. Goodbye. Right as I went to go down, before I could get down the stairs, the pop guys came and started bringing pop up. And I heard, see, tell her she's got good energy. Okay, fine. And of course I told her, and she started to cry and said how she really needed to hear that day. And that it was beautiful, and that we actually shared a common friend here in Ottawa. And because she had known somebody who had moved here, and it happened to be somebody that we both knew. So it was quite funny. Anyway, they know that I needed to have that conversation, that woman needed to hear that, because as soon as I said it, all of a sudden the pop guys are done and there's no more obstructions. So, that was because it was early in my journey and I wasn't trusting the journey. They had to make sure that I was hearing them.
Yeah. And
So,
the message will keep coming. If we're meant,
yeah.
It'll keep coming.
Yeah, people worry about missing out on stuff. And I've fallen into this before. You think you've missed out on something because, oh, maybe I made the wrong decision, or maybe I didn't listen to my intuition, or, those kinds of things. We usually end up back there again to make the decision again in some way, or back in a situation where that's similar, that we can do what we did want to do, or, we usually do end up being presented the opportunity again.
Yeah.
So we're always meant to be where we're meant to be.
Yeah. And a lot of times when it comes back around, it's more, I don't want to use the word correct, but like for us, right? It's even more fitting for what we're trying to do. If we're in a place where, it may be in the beginning, I'm thinking about, like, for me, my master's, right? I finished my undergrad. I wanted to go into my master's, right? And I wanted to, and I was kind of pushing for it and all of that. And I was looking into it. It just never aligned properly. And then, here I am like 20 years later and everything lined up perfectly. to go through and do it, right? And my caps are exactly 20 years apart from one to the other. And, you know, we think, you know, oh, well, I'm supposed to do this, or I have these shoulds in my mind that I have to do something a certain way or whatever. And if we're able to step back and just observe what's going on and feel into it a bit more, we might actually realize, okay, yeah, you know what? It's not necessarily the time right now, but that doesn't mean that it won't be the time later.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Mel. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, you know, we could shoot ourselves. We could shoot ourselves to death, right? Putting that much expectation on ourselves, and we should be doing this, we should be doing that, and whose should is it, and why are we shooting it? Is it really important to should that? And why is it important to should that? I mean, there are things that we need to do, you know, like to take care of things, and you know, like paying bills and, you know, getting our kids to school or whatever the case may be, you know, those things, they do have to happen. But the shoulds for things, we definitely need to have some self-reflection on those and ask ourselves why we have that expectation. Why do we have that? And I think that's part of the great work, right? Doing that kind of work. Yeah, the self-reflection.
Definitely.
For sure. Yeah. So discipline, hand in hand with practice. Part of getting to know ourselves, freeing up brain space to be all that we should be, could be, are meant to be.
Are.
Absolutely. Awesome. So I'll read the affirmation one more time because I think we're coming to the end of our time here. The affirmation: I am disciplined. So with that, we thank you all for coming, for joining us, lending your energy to our talk. We invite you to join us on Wednesday for our show with Michelle Marie, where we're doing free readings. I actually have, if you go to the website, I have a class tomorrow night, Crystal Elixirs, which is learning how to put crystals in water and use them for healing. And then what do we have coming up? What else do we have? We've got lots of stuff coming up. We've got...
Was Ramsey, are you guys, I don't know when does his open mic session?
His open mic is every second week, so next Friday. Okay. Ramsey's got open mic again. We do this again next Monday.
Yeah.
And I believe I have a Reiki 3 class on the weekend.
Nice.
I have, and I'm off to an in-person event that I have tonight, Enlightenment Evening. And don't forget to check out the Celtic Shamanic High Priestess program. The new Year in a Day program is starting on December 20th. So if you want more information, please reach out. And did you want to add anything, Jen? What's going on for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're here on Mondays. I think I'm joining you guys this Wednesday for reading. At least it's on my calendar, so I think that's the plan. So, yeah. And then in the new year, we were talking about, I think, doing a human design course and figuring out exactly when we're going to do that. So if anybody is interested in getting some more information on that, feel free to reach out to Tanys or myself. And
Jen and I are still working on the Light Warrior class or program, because it's going to be a program.
It's going to be a program.
It really is a program.
But yeah, looking forward to presenting at least an information night on that. Yeah. And that'll be another year potentially.
It's transformative, what we're doing. It's going to be transformative. So stay tuned. Also, Twillow Transformation Track. We're working on a new program for individuals too. So for personal transformation. So, and probably some business stuff too. Spiritual business stuff. So there's lots coming in the new year. We're working on all sorts of stuff. So stay tuned.
Yep.
And
Thank you, Susan. Enjoy the week ahead.
Oh, thank you, Susan.
Remember,
You too.
if you're feeling like, you know what, I'm feeling out of sorts, I'm feeling pulled here and there, come back to routine, come back to some of that self-discipline, set some boundaries, honor what you need.
And know you're not alone. There is support. So reach out if you need help, okay?
And
To
thank
us or someone you trust.
Mhm.
And we're sending you all tons of love. I'm Tanys from the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy.
you.
And
I'm Jennifer. I'm with Twillow Lifestyle, as well as My Holistic Self or myholisticselfcounseling.com.
And thank you for spending time with us today. And we'll see you next week. Have an awesome week, everyone.